Live from the center of the earth, Girth.
Are you ready now?
Yeah.
Close the door too, though, just in case. Just in case it gets. It's probably not going to get hectic, but just in case. I think the students are coming in because you probably heard about the Stanford swimmer case.
Yeah, the rape case and yeah.
So graduation is on Sunday, and a whole bunch of students will be plotting the revolution this afternoon. Yeah. So.
A little closer.
Oh, like this? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Check 1 2 1 2.
There you go.
2 3 4 5 6.
That sounds good. Yeah.
7 8 9 10.
I guess yeah. That's the cause yeah, I was googling the address. I hadn't clicked like that. I saw the swimmer stuff, but I didn't click what the university was. Mm-hmm. Until you sent me the because you just hear stuff now, right? Like there's all kinds of like it's almost unfortunate, like the black shootings. It's just like you don't really hear at the cities anymore, whether it's Cleveland or Ferguson or New York or whatever.
Well, it's I feel like it's just part of it's become kind of the ambience that we're, like you said, like we're walking through every day. So
yeah, so it's just like again, or like we're still doing this, like
exactly. Yes, sir. 600 years of racism or more. Still going strong. Even
after you wrote the book, too, right?
I thought I was putting an end to it with this book. I have a little bit more writing to do, I guess.
Yeah. I found that when Obama got elected the first time, there was, especially in America, it felt like racism was like over or something, or like it had concluded, or like
there was a vibe about that. I mean, it felt like, I think, a period of like, it was like you were high.
Yeah.
Like you were just mollied out, and everybody was super happy and hugging each other, and we were all just full of joy. And there was almost this like irrational exuberance, this sense like we had kind of broken through. And yeah, I think back on some of like some of those days, like, wow, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah.
Like what was happening to us at the time? But there was like this sense like that history had been made, and there was, somehow going to be like some magical almost change that would befall all of us, but it didn't happen. Of course, it went the other way.
Yeah.
So
is that again?
Here we are.
Yeah. Is that almost like you said, it went the opposite way? And is that sometimes part of the, I don't know how to phrase it, like I guess part of the reaction to when you put the emphasis on diversity, you put the emphasis on race, and Obama was clearly like a race thing.
Obama's election.
Yeah.
Being a race thing.
Yeah.
I think it was for a lot of people. And what I think those of us who were irrationally exuberant, I definitely caught myself amongst those folks, were feeling was a kind of a underestimation of the other side, I remember, so this book, Who We Be, that I just, I didn't just write it, but it came out in 2014, and it was like an 8-year process. So I was pitching the book back in 2006. And I remember at the time, this is before Obama had declared, his candidacy. He is just sort of coming into prominence, I think, at the time. He had been elected senator, and there was a lot of talk and whispering that he might run. But I was like finishing up Can't Stop, Won't Stop, getting out, talking about that book. And I realized like the one thing that I had missed was sort of a discussion about how the generation before us, the baby boomers, who I straight up shat on a lot, Can't Stop, Won't Stop, right?
Yeah.
And that came from like these arguments that I would have with my elders about my generation, quote unquote generation, because obviously generations are fictions, but that came from that. And I was thinking back about it in 2006 after Can't Stop, Won't Stop had come out, and was thinking to myself, gosh, I really didn't do any justice to all of these people who had sacrificed and fought so hard and like kind of shepherded us through the 80s and the 90s, which were a time of real racial backlash. And we were like youngins then. So we were just coming onto these college campuses, not even understanding, what we were coming into, but we were at that time the quote unquote most diverse generation ever, and all of a sudden racial incidents start happening to us on these campuses, and for me it was real because I come from Hawaii, so I'd grown up in a majority minority quote unquote state, a state that had been captured by the U.S. And colonized and literally brought into the Union that way.
A state also which has a lot of common established stereotypes as well.
In terms of
like the
ethnicity, so
the ukulele,
okay, so I got you. So and racialized stereotypes, absolutely, for sure. And so I'm coming up to California, Berkeley, liberal city, all that kind of thing. History of the free speech movement. I didn't know about the Third World Strike at that time or ethnic studies, but I'm coming into all this. I'm thinking, liberal city, literally almost as soon as I'm off the plane and in the streets, people are calling me chink. And what are you fucking doing here? And go back to China and all kinds of shit, right? And so, that is part and parcel of what my story is about. I read about it in this new book that I'm coming to. But anyway, back to the story. So we're learning from these veterans of the 60s, right? Folks who had been in the Black Panther Party, folks who had done community organizing, folks who had done welfare rights organizing, folks who had done all kinds of stuff in the streets, right? People in the queer liberation movement, people who were out there on the front lines or on third world issues for all these years, feminism and everything else. And they kind of helped us and led us through this backlash that developed against our very presences on the campus. The 80s and the 90s to me, for many years were kind of whitewashed as this Reagan era where everybody's sort of suburban and happy, and these images of Reagan in a cowboy hat on a horse, riding through his ranch.
It was a good profitable too.
It was really profitable to kind of put these images out, and I'm coming up with hip hop and punk music all around me, and then at the end of the 80s, what you see is this development of this ideological backlash and just crazy rise in hate incidents, and just a whole generation of us that was our initiation really into welcome to adulthood as a person of color in America, right? In the US of A.
The classic Chuck D line, which is that rap is the CNN of the ghetto.
Yeah, CNN. He said CNN, the CNN of Black people.
Yeah.
And we were all tuning in as well because we weren't necessarily having anywhere where there was an Asian American or a Pacific Islander like CNN. So we're tuning into the Black CNN at that time. So hip hop was super crucial to that. And I remember my school years at Cal, at UC Berkeley, were about whatever, taking over the political science office or the administration building during the day, and then going to the radio station and hanging out and playing hip hop or listening to punk with folks, or whatever, just chilling at night and stuff, and then going back out to the ramparts the next morning. And that was what I wanted to write about. So I went to my editor and I'm like, I got this great book, I want to write about multiculturalism. And she's like, nobody gives a shit about that. What? Give me a real idea here. Come on, So we had this out for about a year, and then I think, in 2007, Vibe asked me to start covering then candidate Barack Obama, and as soon as he starts running, all of this stuff starts happening. There's the Reverend Jeremiah Wright scandal, right? And there was Hillary Clinton's then advisor saying this guy's not American. We can kill this guy. We'll just raise all of these specters of this guy being a foreigner. Right?
The birth scandal and
right. The one that becomes the birther scandal, right? With Trump and all these other folks. I mean, people forget it begins with Hillary's advisors.
Right.
And so suddenly we're like, oh shit, we actually do have a book, but it's a different book than I thought it was. It's about like what's happened to the U.S. and I think to Canada as well, but all of these ways of immigration and now this massive demographic shifts that are happening, but also this massive cultural shift that's happening because of Black culture, because of hip hop, that we're able now to be able to see the world in a different kind of way, but we're only halfway there. And then Obama gets elected, and I'm like, let's do this book. I'll get it done in a year. This is gonna be like a victory story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as soon as that happens, like we sign the book, like I think, thank God, right before the market tanked during the summer of 2008, like we signed the book, thank God. And then I'm off to write, and almost as soon as he gets elected, the backlash begins. And then that was why the book ended up taking like another 7 years to write, was because I was just trying to comprehend what was going on, with the rise of the Tea Party, the birther movement, all of the fucking Minutemen stuff on the border, like also the other thing that we missed during that particular period was, or a lot of people missed during that period, was all the immigration marches that occurred, right? And so the work that I got involved in was looking a lot more at immigration and really what we've come to describe as migrant justice work. And so we started up an organization called Culture Strike, and we started talking a lot about how we have to change the culture in order to change politics. But anyway, that's sort of a ramble about sort of how things shifted and how I was sort of running to try to catch up with all this stuff. But it does feel right now like in a lot of ways we're back in the 80s and the 90s, and I spent it on college campuses for the latter part of the 80s, and then I went to get my master's during the early part of the 90s, right after the Los Angeles Rebellion. And now it's weird because I'm in a position to teach my students about all of this stuff that had been kind of like glossed over, all this history that they know nothing about, and to try to describe the culture wars and what the long-term impact has been. And I think we've seen, especially in the last 2 years, students find young people, not just students, but just young people generally, like begin to find their voice in all of this. And that's been really exciting.
I want to pick up on that last thread because you talked about when you first went to the campus in Berkeley and then you started experiencing all this racism. How did the process of writing the book and kind of exploring this national backlash change your own perspective or your own, I guess even race issues, your own personal race issues, kind of resolving those?
Sammy, that's a super good question because I went in and I was young and full of shit, just like
anybody who goes to college.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think anybody who's young, like you're gonna be young and full of shit at some point in your life. There's very few people who are like saints and angels from the very beginning and stuff. And I'm not necessarily saying about like saints and angels in terms of like obeying the law or anything like that, or like filial piety. But I'm just saying, like I was young and full of shit. I was, and I think again, like we were following like our elders past. Literally, our professors were teaching us how to gird ourselves to deal with these kinds of things. To deal with like not just like here's how you get on a path to understanding your identity and heal yourself. But here's also an understanding of how all of this connects to this larger history of imperialism and colonialism and racism that goes back hundreds of years, right? And so, you always, as a young person, learn the anger part of it, like really well. Like, oh, I get the anger. I get the fighting stuff. I get the warrior stuff. Like, put me out there. Give me a weapon, whether it be like, like a book, or a picket sign, or a
poem.
Yeah, or a poem or a song, right? Give me 2 turntables and a microphone, right? and I will go out there and express my anger. And I think in the process of writing the book, I had to go back to that and be like, wow, I was really full of shit. We were really full of shit around some of these things. And what we've come around to is it's not, and again, this has been this type of thing where there's a lot of elders who have kind of like taken us through this, you know, but it's come to a point where what I try to teach my students, which is what my elders were trying to teach me all those years, is it's not about simply reacting, right? It's not just about the pinpoint of that moment that flew you into rage and like trying to harness that power that you get from that rage, from that particular moment, that anger you felt when you turned the corner on the bicycle and some fucking hippie is like, get off the sidewalk, go back to fucking China, you know? And you're like, you know, trying to harness that. That's like powerful, right?
Yeah.
Like it really drives people, and it drives people to do very courageous things sometimes. But you can't live like that. Like it's going to burn you out. And it did. It burned all of us out. You know, those of us who are older. So I try to teach folks about like moving through that. You have to get to the point where you're thinking about what is a sustainable future, emotionally, community-wise, all that kind of stuff. And it comes back to like even considering the people that are being shitty to you, that they are worthy of redemption as well. You know?
That's empathy.
Yeah, it is.
But a lot of people, I don't know how to put. A lot of people don't have empathy. Like so. Once, like, if somebody's calling you like Chink or Chinese or making racial things or whatever, the empathy tends, especially now online, the empathy tends to flow to you as the victim rather than the guy who's like being racist to you.
Totally.
Like we've lost nuance in terms of how we do the discussion now since you've written the book too.
Yeah, I think that that's true. I mean, certainly things I think have become a lot more polarized now, and it's even harder now to even be able to imagine. Like, how insane is it to actually make an argument that Trump is worthy of redemption? You know what I mean? Like,
and then still
Trump, right?
And still be socially accepted,
yeah,
right? Like
FTT. Like,
yeah,
I'm all with like that FTT shit. You know what I mean? Like, but you know,
but that's the thing.
Right?
You can't draw the line and say like this person is receive redemption, or this person is worthy of empathy, right, but this person is not. Like, because then it's just like you get into this hard area where you're just judging everything left and right, and you're like, it goes back to what you're saying. You're full of shit sometimes.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you have to call out the bullshit, right? But I think, you know, like, and this is where I think those of us back in the day were misinterpreting even Malcolm X. Like, we were like all down for Malcolm X, like the 1962 Malcolm X, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But what about the 1964, 1965 Malcolm X, right? Like, we were all like against like the 1963 Martin Luther King, but what about the 1967, 1968 Martin Luther King?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, both of them towards the end of their lives were coming around to this idea that like there has to be transformative justice. I think that's what the term is now, that, you know, organizers are using. There has to be transformative justice. So there's got to be a place for the Trump, you know what I mean, in like the better world that we're building. I'm not saying that I'm gonna give him like fucking like, you know what I'm saying, like a fucking Trump Tower.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, I'm speaking metaphorically.
Right.
I guess I could be talking about materially as well, because it'd be cool to redistribute the Trump Tower wealth to like the people.
Yeah.
And like house the homeless, right? But like, that's a whole other thing. I'm speaking, I think, a little bit more metaphorically here. I'm saying there's got to be a place for everybody in whatever the new vision is. This is what Grace Lee Boggs was talking about, I think, all the way up into her passing. And so those are the folks that I look up to now. You know, I look up to those particular ones. I look up to people like Robin Kelly. I look up to people like Cornel West, people who are trying to articulate a politics of what they call love, which sounds kind of corny, but like when you really get down to it, like, what do you got? Politics of hate, politics of reaction, you know, politics of like, I don't know, fuck you, you know, like at some point there needs to be the process of both the fuck you, but also the welcome back.
Yeah.
Like you know, like, or welcome home. Like these are the new rules now. So.
But people also don't either forget or they don't realize that when you call somebody out on their bullshit, it's actually that's love.
That's love.
Right?
Yes, but that's love. Yes.
And that's genuine love. But the thing I think is, especially when you see it online or other discussions too, like at university campuses, people just want they want agreement. They view agreement as love. You know what I mean? Like we all have to have a consensus on this.
Right.
And I think that's where things fall apart because you can't get agreement. Like
like the biggest difficulty is trying to figure out how to live with difference, and that was the whole notion of diversity in the first place. You know what I mean? Like recognize difference and cherish difference and honor difference. You know, there's limits to that. Obviously, like you can't honor the difference that's about destroying the difference. Right? I mean, that's sort of the liberal quandary. I want to get all philosophical and shit about it, right? But my point is when people were starting to use the word diversity in a big way in the 70s, it was a radical idea because at that time there was only one way to be, which was like you're going to be white, right? You're going to be like Americanness is about being white. Americanness is about whiteness, right? Or whatever. Like being human is about being white, right? And therefore, like the binary of that, right, is like if you're not white, then you're not fully human. And it's all about like getting rid of binaries, and it's all about trying to approach everybody in ways that will allow us to all see each other's full humanity. And this is sort of what the point of Who We Be is. It's using the metaphor of seeing to talk a little bit more about like how do we get towards transformative justice.
But also how artists see too.
Yes. Right?
Because artists, and there's a group of creative people that just have a different way of seeing, a unique way of seeing. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think of Joe Montana when I was reading the book, because Jordan, especially, he had the ability to kind of see what the defense was doing. And it's almost like chess. He was like 2 steps ahead. You guys are going to close the lane. I'm going to go this way. Right? And Joe Montana did the same thing. He was going to pass to one guy, and he saw what the defense was doing. He read it, analyzed it, and then adjusted all on the fly. And that's what makes those players great, because they could see it, and they could see what things were happening. Like I said, 2 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And make those adjustments.
I was just listening to De La Soul String Locate, where they sampled Daddy-O saying on and 2 steps ahead.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh wow, like it just came on my iPod today, and I was like, yeah, this shit was dope. But sorry about that digression. No, you're right. You're totally right. And then the interesting thing is in a way, like you're talking about Jordan and Montana, and they're playing the game, right? And the thing is the only difference is that this isn't a game. This is real people's lives, right? So we're not doing this to win. We're trying to see past like the bullshit wall that Donald's trying to build, metaphorically and physically, right? To like what is actually the different way that we could actually, the alternative way that we could actually live together. And I think that at the end of the day, it becomes the type of thing where you have to see through your own shit sometimes, and that's where it gets back down to like the idea of like healing yourself is really key. It's the central and the first step to getting into a situation where everybody can heal themselves. It's not about like I'm gonna heal myself and I'm gonna be good, and everybody else can fuck it, can just fuck off. Right? Yeah, it's not like that at all. And I think that seeing through that is what will get us there. I'm getting all like crazy and like philosophical,
but you went back to love in a sense, right?
Yeah, quasi spiritual and semi-religious, but it's like in my old age, that's I guess where I'm at now,
But doesn't that kind of fall into then going again, just getting older? But the fire, the anger that you're talking about, it simmers now, but it still burns hot.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? People get attracted to flames, but the coals are just as hot.
Yeah, no, you're right, exactly, and it's still cooking, right? It's still cooking shit, right?
Yeah.
Like that's absolutely the thing. But you learn the uses of the fire, right? It's like whatever, like Galliano put, like the memory of fire, right? Is what sustains you, and it's what kind of keeps you moving forward. Absolutely. Yeah.
How do you measure? So you talked about you wrote the book and you're trying to document the backlash after Obama got elected. How are you measuring progress? How are you measuring hope? Like, are there certain signs, or like, are we getting better? Are we getting worse? Or
It's so hard. I mean, like, it's very difficult these days for you, me, and all of us to wake up and like, whatever, fire up our phone or our iPad or that kind of thing, and like, then the news crawl comes on and you're just like, fuck, shit is like nasty and it's horrible and it feels more and more polarized. And so, for me, like, the hope that I get is from young heads who are trying and getting it and putting themselves on the line. Like, I may not believe in generations, but I definitely believe in like the idea of intergenerationality, right? And for me, it's this notion of being open to, and I'm literally in between. I'm in middle age now, right? So I'm in between like my kids and my parents, and the new ones, the youngins are getting born, and the grandparents and the elders and stuff. And so it's, I think about opening up those channels to be able to understand, like, literally, like, what's your lane at this point in life, it's inspiring to be able to see, like, my students, to see young folks who live around me in my neighborhood and that kind of thing, doing it big all the time. It's inspiring to still be learning from the elders, who are like still trying to teach everything, and so at this particular point, I get hope from all of those folks who are in this, and you try to think about yourself as being in between and like serving as conduit, serving as bridge, be able to get Grace's ideas down to the youngins, and to be able to get the old ones to understand why the youngins are angry these days. You know what I mean? When everything was supposedly resolved, like we dealt with that. Didn't we deal with that in the 90s? Actually, no, you didn't deal with it. Like, didn't we deal with that in the 60s? No, we didn't deal with it then either. Like, the shit's still going. So
when Ali obviously just died just recently, and he was obviously a huge figure for civil rights and for Black people, and iconic figure. But I was struck again by the image of the Cleveland Summit, right, where there was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and all. This is when he was taking the rights for the war and all that stuff, right? And he was surrounded by all these like Black people, really prominent Black, talented Black guys, Bill Russell, like all these guys.
Jim Brown,
Yeah.
Abdul-Jabbar,
And I was just struck by that image, and I'm just like, do we have just prominent, just like a group of people that when you put them in a photo like that now, where that same kind of iconic.
Yeah, absolutely we do. I mean, the Black Lives Matter founders, Patrice and Opal and Alicia, you know what I mean? Like, I look up to them. They're younger than me. I look up to them. People who are writing, Ta-Nehisi Coates, right? Nicole Hannah-Jones, right? Like, Kiese Lehman, like, these folks, like, I look up to them. You know what I mean? I think they're all younger than me as well. Maybe Ta-Nehisi isn't. But
He seems to be about our age.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, he's probably younger.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe he's in his late 40s. I don't know. But yeah, you know what I mean? Like, all of these folks are really inspiring. I feel like there's a lot of folks who are doing it big, all around. I think there's a lot of reason to be hopeful, because the thing that Patrice, Alicia, and Opal did was to refocus our attention where it needs the most attention, which is on the question of Black lives. When we look at Black lives, life expectancy for African Americans, for Black people, I'm sure it's the same in Canada, is lower than everybody else, except for I think Native American women, but across the board, like on all measures. And what is that about? It's not just happenstance, right? It's not because people are blowing off opportunities. It's because of institutionalized racism that has like foreclosed life chances, life opportunities, life possibilities for people, from where people live to where Black folks live to where Black folks work, all the way on down the line.
To the way they dream too, right?
I'm sorry?
To the way they dream as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at like Robin Kelly. Like Robin has this amazing book that everybody should read called Freedom Dreams, and I think that if you get right down to it, that's the thing that we're missing right now. Like during times like this where it feels like it's so polarized, where it feels like it's so chaotic, where it feels like there's no hope left, like those are the times that we have to dream the most, that we have to like imagine the biggest, that we have to go like beyond what's in front of us to like what like is possible. Like we have to re-enter the realm of possibility. And I think that, it's hard to see for I think many people like past like the November election,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there's like a lot of fear, but you have to be able to imagine, you have to be able to dream, and that's why we always say that culture like precedes politics, like cultural change precedes political change. You have to be able to imagine a future to get yourself towards it. You can't like alternatives are not getting created out of whole cloth. They need to be like they need to be imagined and dreamed first before they can be put down onto a page and then expressed and enter into the body politic or the sort of social imagination.
Yeah, and in the book Who We Be, you had a line that said identity was still the present and future of capitalism.
Right. I think that the capitalism has so what multiculturalism did was first it raised a lot of hell. It tried to advance this radical notion of diversity, and then there was a backlash. People were really scared of it, and then they started trying to embrace it. Like you can see this in hip hop, right? Hip hop was like loud, rude, and scary.
Offensive too.
Offensive to whom though, right? But scary. It was very scary. Like hip hop was scary.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see a backlash that builds. And the moment that all of this begins to make sense to people not coming from hip hop is April 29th through May 2nd. You know what I mean? In 1992.
The Los Angeles
riots.
Right.
Los Angeles Rebellion.
Following the Rodney King
beating
Yeah.
in March of 1991. Right? And the Latasha Harlins killing as well. You
Yeah.
can't forget that, actually. Especially those of us who are Asian American.
There's that line that I think Ice Cube had in Wicked. April 29, more power to the people, and we might just see a sequel.
Right. And we have, right? Like every generation it comes back around, right? So we have Ferguson in Baltimore, right? But I guess the point that I was trying to make was like after the riots in hip hop, what you see is all of these companies then beginning to try to monetize hip hop. So the period from late 1992 when The Chronic is released by Dr. Dre, up until like when Biggie and Pac are shot, 1996, 1997. Like this is a moment in which a lot of money is being thrown into the game, right? This is when popular culture is saying, yo, we don't need to like reject this shit. We don't need to be having like Charlton Heston talking about like banning rap artists. we need to fucking make money off of this shit. We need the cake off of this, you know. So they literally try to figure out a way to incorporate what's scary, right? And what's scary is this young, diverse, multicultural generation. And I think that now, if you look at diversity, it's become like this very empty kind of idea. It's this empty notion. It doesn't really say anything anymore. It says nothing radical, really. And you know, there's a term for it. Nancy Leong, actually, this scholar from Colorado, like talks about it as racial capitalism. So we're living in a moment where you know, diversity is, I should say, the appearance of diversity, the affectation of diversity. In other words, the sort of trappings of identity, right, is what has value to folks. So at the beginning of every school year, I get a call from like the powers that be here at Stanford, because I run the Institute for Diversity in the Arts, and they want to come to our classes to take a bunch of pictures, and those like inevitably will end up in like some website or Stanford like application or brochure or something like that. And I get it. I understand what they're trying to do here, exactly what they're trying to do.
You're playing the game.
I play the game because I then have to, I then have the opportunity to be able to, you know, to be able to teach, to be able to mentor, to be able to, you know, do my part to build the next generation of leadership. I have to play the game. Absolutely. I'm implicated as well. I'm not saying I'm outside of this. I'm completely complicit. And at the same time, you know, I can give the students these ideas. I can sit in class and be like, yo, this is racial capitalism, right? Like, you're on the athletics team. Like, why do you think if you're not a swimmer, like, but if you're like the student of color who's on the lacrosse team or the soccer team or whatever, maybe in the swimming team or whatever, like, they're going to take an interest in you in a certain kind of way, right? They're in some ways, like, you know, utilizing the image of diversity to be able to sell themselves, because this is the society that we live in now. So that's real, right? And I think that capitalism figured that out, like right around that turn of time, where it's like, oh, actually, yeah, most of the world is not old, white, and lives in the suburbs. Like, most of the world is young, of color, and lives increasingly in cities. And if we're going to sell to the world, then we have to actually start dealing with it here at home first.
But wasn't that the whole impetus behind, like, we're going back to Obama, because the Republicans, they realized after they lost both times to Obama, it's like, all right, we got to appeal to women, we got to appeal to gays, to Latinos, all those kind of things. We heard a lot of that rhetoric, right? We got to refocus, we got to regroup and figure out how. And then all of a sudden they come up with Trump.
Yeah.
And it was the polar opposite of everything they had been saying. It was like, forget Latinos, forget women, and forget gays. We're going to go with Trump.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, Karl Rove was the dude. Karl Rove, if people remember, was George W. Bush's like #1 advisor.
And the string master too, kind of.
The puppet master, absolutely. And he was the dude that was like, the Republican Party has to diversify. You know, it's like shocking actually to kind of think about that, but he was the one. He was the one, and I would go and I covered the conventions and the elections in 2000 and 2004, and 2002 actually too, but 2000 and 2004, and then of course in 2008 for Vibe, and I always like was really interested in the folks of color, particularly Black Republicans that that were being recruited and stuff, and every one of them had the same story, or not every one of them, but most of them had the same story, which was, you know, they walked in the room, they were the unicorn, and suddenly they were like completely like taken care of, like doors opened, that kind of stuff. It was affirmative action, right? It was affirmative action. All these Black Republicans and Latino Republicans, Asian American Republicans, all got in. Native American Republicans all got affirmative action, and they were on that roll. I mean, in 2000, people forget this, but Brian McKnight and Shaka Khan actually performed after on like the in the hour after Bush accepted the nomination. And I was like, Shaka, no. And she actually went on record. I think she said it was like the worst thing that she's ever done in her whole life. She would take it back if she could. But yeah, they were literally like in 2000, like trying to appeal to folks of color. So yeah, identity, past and future of capitalism. For sure.
And does this feed back into what you're talking about with like students being recruited for like the campus to play sports and stuff? Because sports is one area where race, you can almost transcend race. Like we saw that when OJ, this is obviously way before, but when OJ was running, he was so popular with white people and black people. Like Michael Jordan, same thing. He had street cred, but at the same time, white people more or less accepted him. They hated him when he was in New York, obviously, because it's the Knicks. But you know what I mean? Where like there's a opportunity where, and Will Smith has kind of done this too, where he has some street cred, but also can like hang out and like white people like him and accept him.
I don't know if Will Smith has any street cred.
It's a rough definition of street cred, I know.
But yeah, absolutely. You know, the sort of like, I call it the Noah's Ark version of multiculturalism, where you choose two of each, you get them on the boat so they can escape the rising floodwaters, which have been created by climate change. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's basically that, and so bringing it back around, right? Like so, like we thought we were maybe past that shit when Obama gets elected, and as it turns out, not so much. And I think the Republican thing now is the elite are scared, right? Trump's opened a Pandora's box of working class like fears, questions, issues, all of these things that the Republicans thought they had managed for so many years with the culture wars, and now that stuff is literally like fucking like, it's like the gun has been turned around and fired in their face. You know what I'm saying? It's like they don't even understand the depth of the shit that they've been doing, the game that they've been playing, right? Since forever, for fucking ever, right? You can go all the way, you could talk about 1964 and Barry Goldwater, like saying, no, we're going to be against the Civil Rights Bill, You could take it all the way back, right? We could go like year by year through American history, right? All the way back to the founding of the Republican Party, and talk about the way as a race like was managed all the way through. But certainly this particular moment like is it can be traced to 68 and the silent majority and all of this stuff, right? Well, the silent majority is now about to become the so-called silent majority that Nixon was talking about back then, which was working class whites, is now a silent, like a loud minority, right? Or about to become a loud minority, like in not a short amount of time, not a long amount of time, like within 10 years, and the culture has already gotten there, right? And so like that's the box that they opened back in '68 with this Southern strategy, and they can't close it now. They can't like put any kind of lid on that shit. And that's who Trump is, And yes, Trump's a liar. Trump's somebody who is playing on fears and working it. He's doing all this for his own gain. He'll say anything to get elected. I guarantee you, if it were the other way around, if he saw a path to the nomination that required him to be like hanging out with Jim Brown and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and and giving a eulogy at Muhammad Ali's funeral, he would have been doing that. He's an opportunist. He knows that his only path right now, the path that hasn't been taken by anybody else, is the path of like pure unadulterated bigotry and blame shifting, Yeah.
And what you said at the beginning was that the elites are kind of now frightened, and is that part of what's feeding into like Beyonce's Black Panther performance at the Super Bowl?
You mean her performance or the reaction to it?
The reaction to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because it fed right back into the '60s again with the Black Panther and the Black Power movement, and
yeah, it is. I mean, that was an interesting moment because it took them like 24 hours to actually figure out. Oh, that's what she did.
Yeah.
And then Rudy Giuliani's like, oh fuck, she kind of played a song.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
that was a slow burn.
It was a slow burn, right? Like it didn't really take hold, even in like our super fast social media driven like media cycle until like 48 hours later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but absolutely, I think that's what it is. So you know, and that's for the elites. Like that's for the folks who are like, oh, do you realize like this is how she played us? You know, they're not necessarily talking to younger folks, younger whites who have no recollection of the Black Panther Party. They're talking to each other. That's why it didn't last very long, right? It was a very elitist argument, and I think the backlash to Beyonce's performance was probably like a lot bigger than the actual backlash itself.
How do we claim then, like you were talking about the backlash, you're talking about how diversity has almost kind of become this non-word. Like, do we need new language then to kind of articulate these ideas? And just because it's like we're all kind of just saying the same thing or just using certain buzzwords like diversity.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, okay, so this is something that's really, really important for folks who are interested in change to understand. What folks who are radical, progressive, whatever you want to call yourself, you know, like forward-looking, you know, like interested in change, change makers, change agents, whatever word you want to use, what we always have to do is to give people new frames to keep them moving forward. We have to tell them new stories, give people new songs, like, you know, art. We have to be able to move the culture forward. And that comes through language, it comes through visual work, you know what I mean? It comes through all of those different types of things that ignite our imagination. We have to be able to keep imagination alive even during the times of darkest sort of clouds, you know, gathering outside and stuff. When the storm is out there, like we need to be inside, like thinking about like what the next thing is going to look like when the storm cloud passes. And so we continually have to come up with new things. You know what I mean? Like we can't really rest, you know, and that's the nature of culture. Culture's like, it's like the ocean, the tides are always moving the water one way or the other. And that's what we have to continue to be doing. And that seems hopeless, except for the fact that there's so much joy to be had in creativity and in thinking something big through with homies or with a large amount of people, you know, to think in public, you know what I mean? And that's why we need artists, and that's why we need public thinkers, and that's why we need you know, community folks, you know, to be, you know, like gathering and working through these things on a day-to-day type of basis. So yeah, I think that's a constant process. It's not just that we have to do that, it's that we always have to do that, right? So that when the language was equal opportunity, right, the other side reappropriated that, and they called these anti-affirmative action programs or initiatives equal opportunity acts, right? And when folks like wanted to talk about radical diversity, right, suddenly you see like the military like trumping up its diversity, right, like talking very proudly about the diversity in its ranks, right? So we have to continue to keep on moving it, right? I don't know what the new language is yet. I think that's something that comes out of this ferment of right now, you know. But I think that what's undeniable is that it doesn't stop, you know. It keeps on going, And that could be a recipe for burnout, right? That could be a recipe for like this flame like completely blowing up and then like dying out because it burned through the fuel so fast. You know what I mean? And so that's why we keep on coming back to like what is sustainable, what is regenerative, and that has to do with being able to replenish your store of joy and creativity, and to practice politics of love.
So what do you see, or how do you see this kind of like going, or like, I mean, Martin Luther King had the whole "I have a dream" and this is the things that he saw, right? What do you see now? Like
King also said, like at the end of near the end of his life, like in the last year of his life, he said that we all needed to undergo a radical revolution of values, and I believe in that. I believe deeply in that. And I think that points us back to working in the culture. So like doing what you're doing, you know what I mean, like with sound, right, and igniting people through hearing, right, igniting minds, igniting imagination through hearing, through sound. Crucial work, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're changing people's values just through the work that you're doing, through the act of picking up a microphone, and pressing record, right? And everybody does it in their own kind of way. You don't have to be somebody who can draw a great painting or anything. Like if you're on Twitter, you're working in the culture already. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of building the kinds of ties to the community that you need to have, and being open to the possibility of what can happen when folks come together. So yeah.
Just want to finish up on this, but you talked about how like diversity got kind of co-opted a little bit by like, say, like the military is like, look at our diversity and things like that. Is that kind of a new, different type of what Ellison was talking about with the Invisible Man, with that burden of representation, where it's like we've almost gone full circle. Before you weren't really seen, and now you're just a sea of people, so you're kind of unseen in a sense again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think well, the other thing that Ellison said was like they don't see me, right? First he said they don't see, and then he said they don't see me. Like they see their own projections, they see their own demons, they see their dreams, they see their hopes, they see everything except me, is what he said, right? That's the other part of that particular quote, and so what happens is in a lot of ways the language blinds us, right? People will be like, oh, diversity, oh yeah, we do that, we're about that, and then suddenly like we become something else. I'll give you a perfect example. Like I went to a school in a university in a huge state that is rapidly diversifying, but is right now not in the place where Toronto or California is, in terms of having been through like the culture wars and come out on the other side with sort of a new kind of consensus, right? The state is still in the throes of the culture wars. It's one of the major drivers of the culture. It's Texas.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Texas, right? Where the school boards are still trying to fight to whitewash school textbooks in history, right? Where they're trying to downplay slavery, and they're trying to like demonize Mexicans in the readings of the Mexican-American War. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to do all kinds of crazy shit in the textbooks there. So I went to a university there to do multicultural week or diversity week. And,
good luck.
And so I get out there and I'm talking to the director of the multicultural center, and she told me, people like here, they all know about the diversity week now, but it's hard to get white students to come. I said, why is that? She's like, well, white students don't think that they're diversity, or white students think that diversity is a code word for the other folks. So here's a word that was radical once and said, oh, we're all, this is diversity. Like, you should recognize diversity. And at some point, whites were like, oh, actually, diversity is you guys now. Like,
call us when you figured it out.
Yeah. So like even the Oscars, when they were like trying to change their thing up, they're like, literally their plan was to attract was to end like the practice of appointing non-diverse members, or not end the practice, but to sort of stave off like this like ongoing sort of leaning tendency to recruit non-diverse members. Well, what the fuck does non-diverse mean?
Yeah.
Like, do you mean to say like white folks? Like, diversity includes everybody. So if you're saying non-diverse, like what kind of people are you talking about? Like non-people? You're talking about dogs? You're talking about cats? Like you're talking about fish? Manta rays? Like what the fuck are you talking about non-diverse, right? I don't know what a non-diverse person is. Like everybody's diversity in their own ways, and everybody together is diversity. So the language blinds us, right? In that kind of a way, to seeing each other in our full humanity. So we have to get deeper than that. And I think that's what Black Lives Matter, the movement for Black Lives has forced us to do. It's to say, look at these fucking killings. These people were clearly not seen as human. Tamir Rice was not seen as human. Freddie Gray was not seen as human. Sandra Bland, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, Laquan McDonald, they were not seen as worthy of being treated as a human.
That lack of empathy again.
Lack of empathy, right? And the lack of will to express that empathy, to advance that empathy in the sight of a black child, a black man, a black woman, right? And so that's the hitch that we have to get through at this particular point in history. That's what the movement's coming to us to do. And in order for us to get through that, we have to be able to have all of these skills and tools to approach things in that way. And part of that is policy. Part of that is like you put police cameras on police, even though we know that even if you have video, that's not ever going to mean that they're always going to be convicted, and still
we saw that.
Right?
We saw that with Rodney King. I mean, that was
the
video.
Was there,
yeah,
right? The video was there, and we're seeing it in case after case now. Right? We have an activist in LA who is being like a black woman who is being like arraigned and convicted on lynching charges. Like the lynching law was established to protect minority folks, specifically black folks, from mobs, right? From white mobs. And they're using a lynching charge to try to convict her now. So the language is always being twisted, right? And we always have to continue to be able to work that in order to give people the tools to be able to see each other more fully. It's an ongoing process.
That almost then seems like it's a war on many different fronts then, right? Because you're trying to restore the language or take back the language or use new language. You're trying to convince other people. You're trying to connect with other people. There's social, there's cultural. It's like that's what you're talking about in terms of the burnout too, because it's a war on many fronts.
Well, if you think of it as a war, yeah. You know what I mean? Like wars like are, whatever, the expression of the inability to find ways to work together, right? It's absolutely like consonant with anger and burnout, and I mean it's the definition. Like war is death. You know what I mean? What's the worst form of burnout? Death, right?
It's permanent too.
Yeah. So like we're all trying to find sustainable ways of living together. Yeah. And so if you think of it as a war, then you're gonna hit that point. You know what I mean? I think that what needs to happen is, again, for folks to be able to find commonality and to transform values. It's about the revolution of values. It comes back down to that. Ultimately, the values shouldn't be on domination, which is what war is about.
Right.
To the winners goes the spoils. Right. It should be about mutuality. And that is what the struggle is for, I think. We're always in struggle from the day that we're born. And I think that to steep ourselves and to prepare ourselves for the struggle, we need to be able to fortify ourselves with the kinds of emotions that will allow us to replenish the well when it gets emptied. Yeah.
Before I go,
yeah.
Speaking of struggle, you're wearing a Warriors shirt.
Yeah. Oh, I should say, wait, before that, I should say that the new book is about race and resegregation. It's called We Gonna Be All Right.
When,
go, right? You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
This notion of like Kendrick arguing like we're in the struggle, but if we all stay together and God's on our side, then we're gonna be all right, you know. So
when does that come out? Or
that's gonna come out in September, actually. Yeah. So, so it's just a bunch of essays about different types of ways of understanding how we've come to this point of resegregating ourselves and losing sight of that, and how to, you know, in some ways how to address that as well. So. Yeah.
Okay, that's very exciting.
But Warriors, back to the Warriors.
Warriors, yeah. Let's end on a fun note, because I know we got deep into all the So, Warriors in 6, Warriors in 7. What are we talking here?
Wow, I'm still shooting for Warriors in 5, man.
Warriors in 5. Yo, give me 5 for that.
I mean, I feel like the Cavs like figured it out, like for, you know, game 3, they figured out what they weren't doing correctly, you know. But you know, the thing that the X factor in all of this, and I think the thing that folks kind of like maybe take for granted, is the Warriors are a really fucking smart team.
Yes, they
are playing actually far beyond what their numbers look like on paper. You know, if you go just by like size, you know, alone and stuff, like they're playing beyond their means, you know. But these folks have played together forever. It's not a team that was assembled by, you know, one person, you know what I mean? It's not a team that's been in chaos. They like flow together. They're the definition of flow. And that works from the coaching to like all the way on down through each of the players, and the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. Now, Curry and Thompson and Draymond Green are like huge parts, and that sum alone is pretty fucking huge, right?
Yeah.
But I think that what gives them like the edge is the same thing that I always look for in the NCAAs and college basketball. It's like, what's that added extra X factor? And I think it's fucking chemistry. Like everybody on that team genuinely loves each other. Like I don't think that you're going to see Kevin Durant coming out here next year because they'd have to explode the team in order to do that.
Right.
And I don't think that anybody is willing to risk the chemistry of it. Now that they've got it, it's actually very finely balanced. And I think that when you get to that, then you get a team that is able to adjust, and not only adjust, but then to do all of the extra added things that they need to do to win.
It reminds me of the Chicago Bulls because they figured out the role.
Yeah.
Right. They like Rodman knew.
About classic Jordan.
Pippen. Like Rodman knew that they didn't need him to score, but he needed to get those 16 to 20 rebounds.
Yes, the rebounds, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Kerr, Paxson, whoever was in the back, you just need when you get the pop ball, hit it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
That's it. Like you figured out the roles, and it's the same thing with the Warriors. They don't try and like Livingston obviously had a big game in game 1, but it wasn't like they don't need him to score 20 every single night.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and probably Livingston could if he needed to.
Right.
You know what I mean, but he's not. He understands what his role is meant to be within the larger scope of things. Yeah. So like when they win, it's easy. It's a little bit easier to see. What happened in this last game, I feel like is that Cleveland stepped it up on defense big time. Cleveland had, I think, that extra added bonus of being at home. You know, they had the love, and I think the Warriors just came out flat. Like, we got this, you know. But what we've seen this year is every time that the Warriors have been down, like they rally, and that's where the chemistry always comes in. So. I think 5, man. 5, all
right.
Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up there, and then we'll see.
We'll see what happens. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff, for taking some time to do this, man. I appreciate it.